I can't come to the funeral, sweetheart. I'm filming the Happy Family campaign. Image is everything. That was my mother's response, 3 hours after my son died in a drowning accident. She said it like she was turning down a coffee date. No hesitation, no condolences. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just stood there in the hospital hallway, my hands still trembling from signing Ethan's death certificate. Maybe, deep down, I had always known this day would come, the day my mother chose social media over blood. I turned and walked out of the hospital, phone still lit up with her profile picture, flawless smile, studio lighting casting a halo over the mother of the year. I ended the call, and in that moment, something became crystal clear. She had chosen the image. I would choose the truth. And if her campaign was Happy Family, then I'd be the caption she never wanted anyone to read. I remember the sky that day. Not a single cloud in sight, just a brutal, relentless blue. It was the kind of weather people called beautiful. But nothing about it felt beautiful to me. Not when I was burying my 10-year-old son in a suit that still smelled like the last time he hugged me. Ethan loved the color green. His favorite hoodie was forest green with a little frog stitched on the pocket. I almost buried him in that. But the funeral director insisted on something respectful, so I caved, because after all, I was doing this alone. I stood next to the small white casket, my hand resting on the lid like I could keep him there with just a touch. Around me were strangers, neighbors, a few coworkers, even the mailman came. But not her, not my mother. At 10:00 a.m., while I lowered my baby into the ground, she posted a reel of herself in a matching silk pajama set, laughing with champagne in hand, surrounded by pastel balloons. The caption read, "Family first, celebrating 1M followers with my precious ones." I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just took a screenshot. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I opened her latest post and typed, "Thank you for not coming to your grandson's funeral. 1 million likes are worth more than his life, right?" Then I hit post. It took exactly 9 minutes for the comment to explode. My phone buzzed nonstop. Some called me heartless, others called her fake. But me, I felt calm, not because I was healed, but because this was step one. Step one of exposing everything behind her perfect smile. They always said my mother had a gift, a natural charisma, a smile that could charm a room, a camera, or a contract. But they didn't grow up under that smile. They didn't know it could snap like a whip behind closed doors, leaving no bruises, only obedience. After the funeral, I didn't sleep for days. The house was too quiet without Ethan's voice calling from the hallway, without the soft thump of his feet running into my room at night after a bad dream. I kept setting out 2 plates for dinner. I kept looking at the door, thinking maybe, I don't know, maybe the world had made a mistake. But grief doesn't deal in miracles, only illusions, and mine was shattering. What kept me going wasn't healing. It was anger. Scrolling through my mother's page became a ritual of sorts. Torture, maybe. Her photos were saturated with warmth. Backyard cookouts, beach walks with her dog, fake candid laughs with family over brunch. In one video, she cradled a baby that wasn't even related to us and whispered, "Children are our legacy." I laughed. Loud, bitter, hollow. That baby got more screen time from her than Ethan ever did. Her fans adored her. "You're the kind of mother I wish I had," one comment read. "You inspire me to love better." I almost threw my phone across the room. It wasn't just the lie, it was how many people wanted to believe it. She built a kingdom out of curated moments and they worshipped her for it. But I knew something else. I knew the cracks. I knew the assistants she fired without cause, the charity events she faked, the staged candid videos that took hours to shoot until she looked naturally perfect. I remembered being 12, crying in the dressing room because my shoes were too tight and she said, "Then suck it up and smile, we're going live in 5. I wasn't just her daughter. I was a prop, so I started collecting. Emails, text messages, receipts, anything I had from over the years that told a different story than the one she sold online. I reached out to a woman named Leela, one of her ex-assistants who quit after 2 months and swore she'd never work in social media again. Leela agreed to meet me for coffee. She showed up with a folder full of NDAs and photos she had secretly taken. Things like my mom yelling at a makeup artist, her publicist photoshopping bruises out of a domestic violence awareness shoot to make them more aesthetic. One image showed my mother adjusting a crying toddler's posture for a brand shoot, whispering through gritted teeth, If he doesn't stop sniveling, I swear. The rest of the sentence was cut off, but her face said enough. Leela handed me a flash drive and said, I kept it just in case I needed to protect myself. I never thought I'd give it to her daughter. I smiled, neither did I. That night, I made a private folder on my computer called The Real Her. And in it, I dropped every file, every video, every lie I could find. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let Ethan's memory drown in the same silence I was raised in. And then came the message. It was from my mother, not a call. A message. Please delete that comment. It's hurting my brand. No, how are you? No, I'm sorry for your loss. Just her brand. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed back, You hurt your brand. I just told the truth. She didn't reply, but the damage had already begun. I watched as influencers and smaller creators started stitching her video with my comment, asking, Is this the same woman? One TikTok creator found a tweet from years ago where my mom posted a picture of Ethan as a toddler and captioned it, He keeps me grounded. The creator then juxtaposed it with my funeral comment and said, Did she mean grounded as in buried? It was brutal, it was glorious, but it wasn't enough. Public opinion is like wind, it shifts fast. My mother started damage control immediately. A post about coping with family grief, followed by a live Q&A where she cried on camera and said, I loved my grandson. We just grieve differently. Her followers flooded the comments with hearts. We believe you. Stay strong. Don't let the haters win. I watched it all from my couch, a glass of wine in one hand, Ethan's frog hoodie clutched in the other. I should have felt defeated, but all I felt was clarity. She was too good at the performance, so I had to be better at the truth. The next morning, I messaged Leela again. Do you know if she kept a burner phone? One she used for brand negotiations outside of PR. There was a pause, then. She had two. One was for image, one was for leverage. Bingo. If I could get my hands on that second phone, if I could find what she never meant to be seen, I could expose not just the cracks, but the entire illusion. And I knew exactly where it would be. Back at the house I once called home, so I packed a bag, not with fear, with resolve. I was going back, not as her daughter, but as her reckoning. I hadn't been back to the house in over a year, not since the day Ethan asked me why Grandma always wore makeup to dinner. I told him, because she thinks cameras are always watching, and he laughed like it was a joke. But it wasn't. That house had more ring lights than lamps, more mirrors than memories. And now, I was walking up the driveway with a different kind of purpose. The white gate recognized my car. The security system hadn't been updated. Of course not. My mother was meticulous about appearance but careless about the bones beneath it all. I pulled in slowly, heart steady, eyes scanning. The lawn was trimmed, the roses manicured, and the family lives here sign still glinted in fake copper by the mailbox. I parked under the same awning where she once staged a photo shoot of us unloading groceries, only we didn't go grocery shopping that day. The bags were filled with empty boxes, staged to look full for Whole Foods-sponsored content. Ethan had asked if he could eat the apples. They were plastic. The front door was unlocked. She never imagined I'd come back. Inside, it smelled like lemon-scented cleaning spray and synthetic calm. The walls were still lined with blown-up canvas prints of curated family moments. One showed us all smiling by a fireplace. The truth? We were freezing. The shoot had taken 4 hours because she insisted on using natural light even though it was snowing outside. I made my way up the stairs. Her office was on the 3rd floor, a converted attic, sealed off from noise and full of her branding space. I passed Ethan's old room along the way. I stopped. I didn't want to, but I did. The door was slightly ajar. Nothing had changed. His bed was still unmade, the dinosaur sheets wrinkled, a pile of Lego bricks in the corner exactly how he'd left them. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of him and me, taken on the beach, his gap-toothed smile beaming at the camera. I remember that day. It wasn't for content. It was just us. The only memory in that house that wasn't a lie. I swallowed the lump in my throat and kept walking. The attic door creaked open like a horror movie cue, but what greeted me wasn't horror, it was silence, untouched, exactly how I remembered it. 3 ring lights mounted on stands, a white chaise lounge for filming emotional reflections, a shelf stacked with fake awards and empty trophy cases that said things like one mom in the world. I went straight to her desk. She always hid the things she didn't want people to see in plain sight, assuming no one would dare open them. Top drawer? Locked. I smirked. She taught me how to pick locks at age 13, said it would make a quirky fact for my future podcast bio. 30 seconds. Click. Inside, 2 phones. One pink, her primary, the other matte black, the leverage phone. I grabbed the black one and sat cross-legged on her faux fur rug, thumbing it open. Of course, she used the same password she always did. The date she hit 100K followers. June 12, 2017, unlocked, and just like that, Pandora's box opened. There were folders, lots of them. Brands 2022. Influencer Dart. Family Library. I opened Family Library first. It was worse than I thought. Recordings of me, of Ethan, of our fights, our cries, our quiet moments, used as sound samples for her background content. There was even a clip of Ethan's voice saying, "I miss mommy when she works." She'd used it over a montage of smiling stock footage children in a Mother's Day ad. My hands shook, not with sadness, with fury. She sold our pain as ambience. I exited the folder and tapped into Influencer Dirt next. Screenshots, audio messages, blackmail material. Conversations with other influencers she threatened into silence. Proof of brand manipulation. Photoshopped screenshots of fan letters that never existed. But it was the brand's 2022 folder that held the diamond I didn't even realize I was looking for. Emails. One from a baby formula company, where she agreed to write a blog about struggling as a single grandma, even though she hadn't been alone a day in her life. Another from a grief app, offering $10,000 for a testimonial video about how she was healing after losing a grandson. She agreed. The campaign hadn't launched yet. She was going to monetize Ethan's death. I dropped the phone. My breath came ragged and short. I pressed my hands to my chest, trying to slow the beating, but my vision blurred with something between tears and fury. She wasn't just absent from his funeral. She was planning to profit from it. It all clicked. The silence, the cold response, the refusal to attend. It wasn't just about her image. It was about timing. She didn't want to be photographed at a real funeral while prepping for a sponsored grieving series. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I grabbed the phone, my bag, and left the attic without looking back. I passed Ethan's room again. I paused, walked in. I took the photo from his nightstand. Then I walked out of the house she built, her content castle, with the one thing she never thought I'd take, the story she tried to control. It was time to burn the whole illusion down. I didn't go home. Not yet. I parked my car in a quiet lot behind a 24-hour diner, locked the doors, and just sat there with Ethan's photo in my lap and the black phone glowing in my hand. The streetlight flickered above me, casting shadows that danced across the dashboard. But my mind wasn't on the dark, it was on strategy. I had one shot at this. If I released everything the wrong way, she could spin it. Cry on livestream. Blame hackers. Frame me as the grieving daughter lashing out. But if I timed it right, if I layered the evidence with precision, if I told the story, the whole story, like she always taught me to, but with the truth this time, she'd have nowhere to hide. The irony wasn't lost on me. She trained me for this. Years of content coaching, of watching her manufacture drama to drive engagement, of sitting silently as she explained how pain sells better than joy. I knew the tricks, the angles, I knew exactly how to dismantle the empire she built because I had been the bricks. So I began. First, I created a burner account. No name, just a bio. She chose her image. I chose the truth. Then I uploaded a video. The opening shot was a still of Ethan's casket, blurred, respectful, but unmistakable. Over it, my voice, "This is where my 10-year-old son was buried." My mother, the woman you call Momfluencer of the Year, wasn't there. She was cutting a cake for her 1 millionth follower. Fade to a screen recording of her Instagram post. Balloons, laughter, pink icing smeared on her cheeks. Cut. Then came the real footage. Clips from the leverage phone. Audio of her instructing a crying toddler to stop ruining the damn shot. Emails discussing paid campaigns about coping with grief she hadn't even begun to feel. Screenshots of her using Ethan's voice in sponsored content without permission. I didn't speak much. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. The video ended with a simple quote, "You built your brand on love. You forgot to give it to the people who mattered." Upload, public, share. I put the phone down and stared out the windshield, half expecting a bolt of lightning or a car to crash through the lot. But the world stayed quiet, unchanged, until the notifications began. Within the first 10 minutes, it had 2,000 views, then 10,000, then 100,000. Comments flooded in, first in disbelief, then in anger, and finally in mourning. I followed her for years. I had no idea. I feel sick, that poor boy. This is what happens when image matters more than family. Expose it all, don't stop. Influencers picked it up. Twitter exploded. TikTok stitched the video into 1,000 reactions, some crying, some furious, some calling for brands to drop her. Within hours, the video was trending under #cancel the momfluencer. But I wasn't done. I posted more. In bursts, like tremors before the collapse. A recording of her telling her assistant to make up a childhood trauma for a podcast interview. Screenshots of her doctoring DMs to paint herself as a victim of online hate when the only person she'd silenced was me. A contract proposal from a toy brand to feature Ethan in a grandson-approved series of educational tools, dated just 1 week before his death. The internet was a wildfire now, and I was holding the matchbox. Then came the call, not a message, not an email, a direct call from her number flashing across my screen like a ghost. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. "Hello, Mother." There was a pause, longer than I expected, and when she spoke, her voice was softer than I remembered, controlled, shaking but only barely. "You have no idea what you've done." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Correction, I know exactly what I've done. For once, I'm the one holding the camera." "You think this will bring him back?" she snapped. "You think ruining me will fill that hole?" "No," I said flatly. "But at least now the world knows who really left it there." She exhaled, long and ragged. "Sarah, we can fix this. I'll issue an apology. We can post something together. Show unity. People eat that up." I laughed. It wasn't pretty. It was raw and broken and bitter. "You still think this is a PR crisis," I whispered. "It's not, it's a reckoning." I hung up. No dramatic goodbye, no final word, just silence. I sat in that car until morning, watching her world fall apart through a screen. Brands pulled sponsorships. PR firms dropped her. Other influencers came forward with their own stories, some minor, some terrifying. By dawn, she deleted her Instagram. But it was too late. The illusion was shattered. And in the quiet, for the first time since Ethan died, I felt something real. Not revenge, not closure, not even peace. Just truth. And I knew I wasn't done. Because behind every smiling post, there are stories like mine: daughters silenced, children used, grief marketed. And maybe, just maybe, if I kept telling it loud enough, someone would finally start listening. They say once the fire's out, the silence feels louder than the flames. I used to think silence meant peace. But in the days after my mother vanished from social media, I learned silence can have teeth. She didn't go quietly. Within 48 hours of deleting her Instagram, her legal team sent me a cease and desist letter. Neatly worded, polite even. It said my videos were libelous, defamatory, and intentionally destructive to a public figure's image. The irony nearly made me choke on my coffee. They were threatening to sue me for telling the truth about a woman who built her entire brand on lies. I read the letter 3 times, then laughed and pinned it on my refrigerator like a child's drawing. Let them come. What could they do? Sue me for remembering too clearly? But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. My mother was many things: vain, cruel, calculated, but above all, she was relentless. She wouldn't go down with grace. She'd claw her way back, draped in apologies and rebranding campaigns, and she'd spin this entire ordeal into a redemption arc. That was the real danger. Not the lawsuits, not the trolls, the narrative, so I moved fast. I contacted every small creator, former assistant, and burned collaborator I could find. I told them what I had, what I was doing, and why. Most were hesitant, scared. She'd held too much power for too long. But some were ready to talk, and one of them had gold. Her name was Paige, a former PR intern, barely 23. Fired after she refused to fake a suicide scare to boost engagement on Mental Health Awareness Week. I almost vomited when she told me. She said it would make her relatable, Paige whispered into the phone. That suffering sells. She even had a script ready, wanted me to leak it to a gossip page. "Do you have proof?" I asked. A pause, then a sigh. I kept the script and the audio memo. I couldn't delete it. I knew someday someone would care. And suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. We became a team, accidental, makeshift, bound by trauma and purpose. I gave them space, anonymity when they needed it, credit when they wanted it. I wasn't interested in being the face of a movement. I just wanted to burn the mask down. But with every step forward, there was pushback. Her fans, the loyal ones, didn't disappear. They morphed, DMs filled with threats, comments accusing me of exploiting my own son's death for fame. Someone posted my address online. I started getting packages, some empty, some filled with glitter and hate notes. I installed cameras. I stopped answering the door after dark, but I never stopped uploading. Each video dug deeper, not just into her, but into the influencer industry she'd come to represent. The way children were used as content. The way grief, poverty, trauma became props. I wasn't just telling my story anymore. I was holding up a mirror, and the reflection wasn't pretty. One night, while editing a video about brand manipulation tactics, I opened a folder I hadn't touched since Ethan's death. Inside were voice memos he used to record on my phone, little songs, bedtime stories, jokes he'd make up. And then I heard one I'd never played before. "Mommy says I'm enough, even if Grandma says I have to smile better." I froze. His voice, so small, so trusting, and in just 10 words he'd summed up everything I was fighting against. I cried. For the first time since the funeral, I let myself break. Not for content, not for clarity, just for him. I cried until my throat ached and my fingers curled into fists. And when I was done, I wiped my face, hit record, and looked straight into the camera. "This isn't about revenge," I said. "This is about memory. About the right to tell our stories without being filtered, polished, monetized. My son was not a brand. My pain is not your campaign. And I will keep speaking, louder and louder, until no mother has to bury her child alone while the world claps for curated lies." The video went viral overnight. But this time, something changed. A lawyer reached out, someone from a nonprofit working to protect children in digital media. She said my story was pushing forward a bill in California to limit how parents could use their kids in monetized content. She asked if I'd be willing to testify if it went to hearing. I said yes. Not because I wanted to be the center of anything, but because Ethan would have been proud. And if this whole thing, this hurricane of grief, fury, and truth, could protect one other child from being reduced to a hashtag, then maybe, just maybe, it would matter. My mother was quiet now. No posts, no statements, not even through proxies, but I could feel her watching. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't the narrator. I was, and I wasn't done. It started with a whisper. A blurry photo of her outside a yoga studio in Malibu, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that failed to hide the sharp curve of her jawline. Captioned, "She's back, stronger, wiser, ready." At first, I thought it was a fan account trying to stir the ashes. But then came the teaser trailer, professionally shot, slow-motion waves crashing against a California shore, piano chords swelling under a voiceover that sounded too perfect to be anyone but her. Sometimes, you lose yourself in the performance, but healing begins when you remove the mask. No name, no direct reference, but I knew, the industry knew. My mother was staging a comeback, and not just any comeback, the comeback, a full-scale rebrand. From glamour queen to grief-stricken, misunderstood matriarch, it was manipulative, masterful, monstrous, and she was good at it. Within days, she launched a new Instagram account. At heart of her, claiming her old self was a product of toxic branding culture, and that she was taking back her narrative. The bio read, "Widowed, grieving grandmother, human first." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. The posts came fast, candid shots of her journaling, crying in soft lighting, hugging therapy dogs, holding a candle by the sea. And of course, a carousel post about Ethan, grainy baby photos, handwritten letters she claimed to have found tucked in her drawers. One of them said, "I love you, Grandma, you make the world brighter." Ethan never wrote that. I would have recognized his crooked handwriting anywhere. She'd forged his memory. The post hit 1 million likes in under a day. Celebrities commented. Wellness brands sent heart emojis. One popular influencer wrote, "We need to remember people can change. This is growth." Growth, she skipped his funeral. She profited from his death. Now she was harvesting sympathy like a crop. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned to my team. By now, we weren't just a group chat. We were a network. survivors of the influencer machine. Ex-staff, ex-children, ex-versions of ourselves. We knew her patterns, her playbook. And now we had something she didn't, receipts. We drafted a response, but not another exposé. That would feed her martyr complex. Instead, we curated a timeline, not of emotions, but facts. The date Ethan died. The brand deal signed the next morning. The email to her stylist about soft morning tones. The photo shoot staged within 48 hours. The grief app contract. The fake Ethan note. Yes, Paige found a copy of the mock-up in the phone's drafts folder. Same handwriting, same wording. We posted it all, sourced, verified, dated under one headline. Grief is real. So are lies. No dramatic music. No voiceover. Just cold, unfiltered evidence. The internet hesitated. For the first time, the two narratives collided, her candlelit comeback versus our pixelated truth. And people weren't sure who to believe. Emotion is easy. Facts are hard. My mother cried prettier than I did. Her lighting was better. But then something strange happened. Mothers started commenting. Real ones. The kind who didn't have PR agents or lighting kits. Women who had lost children, who had grieved in private, who had nothing to gain from lies. I buried my daughter 5 years ago. This is not what healing looks like. If I ever used my son's death for likes, I'd never forgive myself. Sarah, I believe you, I see you. And suddenly, the tide shifted. Her latest post, an open letter titled To My Grandson from My Broken Heart, was ratioed. Comments flooded with links to the timeline. Screenshots. Questions she couldn't answer. Then came the final break, an email leak. Someone in her new team had forwarded us a pitch deck for her recovery tour. Yes, tour. Featuring guest appearances, brand partnerships, live podcast recordings from sites of healing, including, of all places, Ethan's elementary school. That was the last straw. I called the school myself, told them everything. They canceled immediately. Then I went live. Not edited, no script, just me raw. She wants to use my son's school as a photo op. The same boy she refused to bury. The same boy whose memory she now sells like it's merch. I'm done asking for dignity. I'm demanding it. It hit 3 million views in 12 hours. By morning, #Heart of Her was trending for all the wrong reasons. Brands issued apologies. Influencers deleted collaborations. And the account went dark. Again, only this time there was no comeback trailer, no voiceover, just one final post, 3 words in a black square. I was wrong. I stared at it for a long time. There were no comments enabled, no likes visible, just silence. But this time it wasn't sharp. It wasn't a threat. It was empty. I didn't feel triumphant or relieved. I just felt tired. My inbox was full. Offers to tell my story on podcasts, interviews, book deals, documentaries. But I didn't respond because this wasn't a brand. It was my life, and I was still living it. Quietly, honestly, with Ethan's photo by my bed, and no cameras in sight. You would think after everything, the uploads, the backlash, the silence, I'd feel done. But grief doesn't have an end. It's not a chapter you finish and close. It's a hum beneath your skin, always there, always whispering. And sometimes, even after the storm has passed, it gets louder. I started waking up at 3:17 a.m. every night. That was the exact time Ethan's heart stopped. The hospital called me at 3:28, but the records say 3:17. My body knew it before I did. My mind still replayed the way his fingers curled around mine before the paramedics pulled him away. How cold his forehead felt when I kissed it goodbye. I didn't share these things online, not anymore. The world had seen enough of my pain, or maybe I'd had enough of them seeing it. Instead, I turned inward. I deleted the burner account, archived the videos. I didn't erase them, but I no longer needed the world to validate Ethan's memory. I knew who he was, I knew what I'd lost, but the world didn't forget. 3 weeks after my mother's final post, a documentary filmmaker reached out. A woman named Zoe Hart. Her message wasn't like the others. She didn't promise fame or views or redemption arcs. She wrote, I lost my daughter to a car crash 6 years ago. I see your story, not as content, but as a mirror. I'd like to help you hold it up if you'll let me. I met her in a small cafe, halfway between Lowe's Angels and nowhere. She had tired eyes and no makeup. We sat in silence for a while before she spoke. I don't want to tell your story, she said. I want to help you tell it your way. And somehow that felt different, so we started slowly. No lights, no script, just conversations. Real ones, About Ethan, about childhood, about silence and mothers, and the difference between being seen and being loved. In one scene, I read Ethan's last drawing journal out loud, a shaky little sketch of a rocket ship and the words, "Me and Mommy are going to the moon." I cried, not for the camera, just because it hurt, and Zoe let me. No edits, no manipulation. And for the first time, I remembered what honesty without performance felt like. The documentary never went viral. It wasn't meant to. It premiered quietly at a local grief and healing festival. Small room, 40 chairs. No influencers, no brands, just people who had lost someone sitting side by side in the dark. Afterward, an older man approached me. He didn't say anything. He just held my hand. His eyes were wet and his grip was firm. That meant more than any comment section ever could. A few months later, the child labor protection bill passed in California. Zoe and I were invited to speak at a hearing. I stood at the podium, fingers trembling slightly, and said, "Our children are not marketing tools. Their grief, their joy, their silence, all of it deserves respect. If we, as adults, are going to speak about them, let it be with honesty. And let it never, ever be for profit." They clapped, but I didn't cry. I'd learned by now that applause doesn't bring peace. Only truth does. Back at home, I kept Ethan's frog hoodie in a shadow box, hung it above my desk. Some days I still talked to it. Some days I didn't. But it was always there, constant, unfiltered, real. As for my mother, I don't know where she is. I heard she moved to New Mexico. I heard she changed her name. I heard she's writing a memoir. Let her. The world will decide what it wants to believe. But I'm no longer playing that game. I've built something else now, not a brand, a boundary. Between me and the noise, between truth and performance, between what was taken from me and what I still choose to hold. And in the quiet, I finally hear Ethan's voice clearly. Not through speakers, not through clips, but in memory, whole, unedited. Mine, it happened on a Tuesday. I was standing in line at the grocery store, of all places. Something painfully ordinary, buying almond milk, cereal, and dish soap. I remember the air felt thick, like the weight of the week had settled in my lungs. Then I heard a voice behind me say, almost too casually, "I didn't expect to see you here, Sarah." I turned, there she was, my mother. Her hair was longer, dyed a soft gray now, as if to mimic wisdom. Her eyes were hidden behind large sunglasses, but I could still feel their sharpness. She was dressed in earth tones, the kind stylists recommend when you're rebranding as humble. For a moment, time slowed. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat, I just felt, "Hello, I live here," I replied flatly. She gave a tight smile. "So do I now." The words sat heavy between us. A silent war of implications. She looked at the items in my basket, then added, "You look tired." I stared at her, "And you look still acting." That wiped the smile from her face. There was a time when I would have crumbled under her gaze, when one disapproving look from her could unravel me. But that version of me was buried next to Ethan, in a grave filled with illusions I no longer carried. "I'm not here to fight," she said finally. "I just thought maybe we could talk." I considered it, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because closure sometimes wears strange clothes. We met in the park the next day, neutral ground. She brought tea, I didn't touch it. "I've been doing therapy," she began, as if that were a magic spell. "I've been trying to understand myself. The damage, the pressure I put on you, on all of us." I let the silence hang. I wanted her to feel it, to taste the same stillness she gave me at Ethan's funeral. "I made mistakes," she continued. "But you have to understand, I grew up with nothing. Image was all I had. I didn't mean to hurt you." "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to skip his funeral?" I cut in. My voice was cold but calm. "Or you didn't mean for the world to find out." She flinched. That was the difference between guilt and regret. Guilt is internal. Regret is public relations. "I was scared," she whispered. "I thought, if I showed grief, the wrong kind, the brand would fall apart. It should have fallen apart." She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: uncertainty. Not the kind you fake for sympathy, but the kind that comes when your entire persona crumbles and there's no audience to clap. "I lost a grandson," she said, voice breaking. "No," I replied. "You lost a photo op, I lost Ethan." She didn't argue. Instead, she nodded slowly, lips pressed together like they were holding back the apology she still didn't know how to give. "Is there any way back?" she asked. It wasn't a plea, it was a question. I took a breath, staring at the trees swaying above us. "There's no going back," I said, "but there is going forward, just not with me." She nodded again, eyes glassy now. Then she left. No hugs, no theatrics, just two women with a grave between them, finally understanding that not every silence can be bridged. Later that night, I opened my laptop. Zoe had sent over the final cut of the documentary's online version. She wanted to release it for free, no ads, no sponsors, just truth. I watched it alone on the couch, wrapped in Ethan's favorite blanket. In one of the last scenes, I looked directly into the lens and said, "We don't heal by pretending it didn't happen. We heal by letting it change us." And I realized something. I wasn't telling this story to keep Ethan alive. I was telling it so that I could keep living. I hit approve. And as the video uploaded, I didn't feel vengeance. I felt clarity. The documentary went live on a rainy Thursday. No press junkets, no ad campaign, no countdown timers ticking toward some overproduced release. Just a quiet link shared across grief forums, support groups, and a single pinned post on my page. "This isn't content. This is memory." For Ethan. I didn't expect much, maybe a few hundred views, a couple comments. But by sunrise, it had spread like a soft wave, silent, steady, reaching far more people than I imagined. Not virally, but deeply. Emails began trickling in. Not from journalists or executives this time, but from mothers, fathers, daughters, sons. Strangers who knew loss, who knew the hollowness of watching the world scroll past your grief like it's just another story to skip. One woman wrote, "I never got to speak at my daughter's funeral. Her father said it would be too much for the guests, but hearing your voice say his name, it gave me mine back." And another, "I stopped documenting my son's milestones for likes. Now, I write him letters instead. You reminded me what love actually looks like." Those messages, they anchored me. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave it purpose. I was planting something again. Not revenge. Not justice. Roots. Around the same time, a journalist reached out, an investigative writer named Miriam Reyes. She had been following the story since my original videos and asked to write a feature, but not about my mother. About the children, the ones used, framed, filtered, then forgotten. She said, "What you did opened a door. I want to help push it further." I agreed. When the article was published, it didn't carry a catchy title or a thumbnail of a crying face. It was simply called, "Not Their Brand, The Cost of Childhood in a Performative World." It told Ethan's story. Mine, Paige's, Leela's, dozens of others who came forward. It ended with a quote from Ethan's drawing journal. "When I grow up, I want to be kind." The world listened this time. State legislatures outside California began reviewing their own digital child labor laws. Platforms like Instagram and YouTube were forced to address policies about monetized family content. Small changes, but real ones, and real mattered more than big. My mother stayed quiet, truly quiet this time. No new accounts, no anonymous tips, no notes in the mailbox. I think she understood now that her silence said more than her words ever did. And me, I moved. Nothing dramatic. Just a small house outside the city where I could breathe and not feel like my grief was echoing against the walls of my old life. The backyard had a tree, tall, gnarled, imperfect. I planted a garden beneath it. Carrots, strawberries, lavender. The kind of things Ethan would have liked to grow. Some mornings, I sit under that tree with his journal in my lap, reading the same pages again and again. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I do both. But every time I feel him, not in a haunted way, not like a ghost clinging to pain, but like light. There was one last entry in his journal I hadn't seen before. It must have been tucked between the pages, fallen behind the others. It was just a scribbled sentence. "I think Mommy is the bravest person in the whole galaxy." I stared at that sentence until my vision blurred. I pressed the page to my chest, the way you press a hand to a wound, not to stop the bleeding, just to know it's still there, because I wasn't healed. Not yet, maybe never, but I was whole, in a broken, beautiful, real way. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. A year had passed. It snuck up on me in the quietest way, not with a scream or a sob, but in the form of sunlight slipping through my window at the exact angle Ethan used to draw on the floor. June 14, the day he left, the day the water took him and everything that followed came crashing down. I didn't mark it with flowers or candles, no public posts, no tribute videos. I just sat in the garden under the tree, Beside the lavender we planted together that spring before, his hands dirty, his laugh shrill with joy every time he unearthed a worm. And I remembered. Not the hospital room, not the white casket, not even the headlines, just him. The way he used to tap my nose twice before saying goodnight, the way he called the moon God's flashlight, the way he'd whisper, "Promise you won't forget me," even though I never once forgot where I came from. I pulled out a sealed envelope, one I'd written a month ago but hadn't dared open until now. Inside, a letter to him. "You were never a story, you were never a brand, you were my little boy. My chaos and my calm, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from a world that asked for your smile but not your soul. But I promise I will protect what's left of you. Your memory, your truth, not with noise, but with roots. You are in every kind thing I say, every line I write, every choice I now make with a little more softness than before. They say justice feels like thunder. But this quiet, it feels like something you would have liked more. I miss you, and I'm okay. Love." Mom. I folded the letter, placed it beneath the soil under his favorite sunflower stalk, and whispered his name. Once, then I stood, and I let him go not from my heart, but from the need to carry him like a wound. He deserved more than that. He deserved to be remembered not through the lens of what was taken, but for who he was. The boy who drew galaxies with crayons. The boy who believed kindness could save the world. The boy who, for 10 years, gave me a love that no camera ever captured. Later that night, I received a message from Zoe. The documentary had quietly reached over 12 million views. Schools were requesting screenings. Universities were quoting Ethan's words in media ethics seminars. One nonprofit had started a foundation in his name, offering resources for children used in monetized content, giving them something they were so often denied: a voice. I didn't respond immediately. I just turned off the lights, curled beneath Ethan's blanket, and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel watched, I didn't feel consumed. I felt real, no script, no angle, no performance, just me. A woman, a mother, a memory keeper, and in that moment I knew. The story was no longer about revenge. It was about return. Of truth, of dignity, of love. The last frame wasn't a post, it was a heartbeat, still beating. Even after everything,